you with a little recording. I'm on the road doing a little driving today, so I figured this might be a good time to just check in after the 3 videos I posted, and just this little 3-parter, because as I said before, it gave me a lot of subject matter that I want to explore on this channel. Some things separately, some things that just kind of run together. So I guess I wanted to come back with just a video on my own, just revisiting some of the points made in the previous videos series, and just kind of address that. So first, in the Awareness for Chris video, I must not have caught it during the video that I was shooting, because there was a point where so the title of the video is called "The Evolution of the Black Man," but there's a point where he mentioned something to the effect of, besides, black people buying BMWs, they're also buying Air Jordans and weave. And so I found it interesting that I thought about it. Well, what does hair weave that affects women and women's purchasing choices? Not that there aren't black men who are engaged in the hair weave. You can just look up on YouTube black men hair weave. You'll see black men who are either balding, have some other type of hair issues, using glues and tinctures and what have you, and applying hair pieces to their hair, or just to even get different styles that they can do with the hair that is already just coming out of their scalp. So in a certain way, it's not totally removed from them, but obviously it's safe to say that the point that he was trying to make is black women buying hair weaves. So the evolution of the black man, I'm really curious what black women's purchasing power for a product that they're going to apply to themselves, their own physical body, has to do with the evolution of the black man. Found that very interesting. So also, returning back to the original, the first point about, because basically I think the first thing that really struck me was his outlay of history is very much what you see a lot of black men, particularly on YouTube and a lot of these social spheres, how they just kind of look at things. Everything is just this random amalgamation of, well, there were some boats, we came over, slavery for some years, ... civil rights movement, so on and so forth. And they leave a lot to be desired. So one place I guess I would start here, and just this kind of open-ended rant discussion, topical, shooting things at the wall, is the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So you mentioned drugs and violence, and then and music, and kind of, I guess, the changes from the musical culture we see in the 50s or so to the rap hip-hop that comes up later in the 80s going into the 90s. So first starting with, 60s, 70s, 80s. Let me back up. As I was driving, I thought one thing, maybe I would just use this to just discuss this part. Now, when we talk a lot about the 60s and the feminism, he says the civil rights movement, then the 60s and the feminism. Interestingly enough, that was never really ever discussed, and I would like to see a lot of discussion happen, is what choices were black men making? Because he says 2 things. One, the rise of single motherhood and the destruction of the black family, and then the counterpart to that being black men being removed from the home. So let's just walk down this line with that being the premise that he laid out. Besides, originally me asking again, can I please see some receipts, footage, counts, pictures of these likely white people, or maybe these robots, who came around and started taking black men physically and moving them from homes. I was thinking, are we going to find some kind of concentration camp in Vermont or some little corner of Texas or southern tip of Nevada where there's all these black men that were taken from the homes and rounded up and just put there to sit and wait while everything fell apart? Because for them to be physically removed from the home, then we have to ask, where did they go? And and bringing off of that, when I hear that thrown out, particularly by black men, I always want to ask, now we look at the unemployment rates and some of the negative stats that black men hold today in 2018 for a host of reasons. Now, if we go back to the 60s, and this is the premise that they constantly want to throw out here, is that They were removed from the homes. Now, wouldn't that imply removal from having to, produce, provide, and protect for a black family? Wouldn't that imply maybe increased wages because you're not spending them on feeding and clothing women and children? So you're removed from the home. What else happened? And so then then that leads us to work and employment. You would think that, let's say, essentially we say that by not until after the 90s, most of the factory jobs and other types of maybe blue-collar employment that black men particularly dominated as a group when they came from, after World War II and the ongoing Great Migration from the South that happens basically in the very small numbers from the end of the Civil War all the way up and through probably the good part of the 60s into the 70s. Like my family came north from Birmingham in the early 1960s with other black people from those same regions and areas. So to take it that then they're removed from the home, but I'm going to take it also that they're still employed. Wouldn't that imply that there's a certain amount of wealth maintained by black men? You're not having to pay for women and children. White daddy, Uncle Sam is doing that. So you're removed from the home, removed from those financial restrictions. The money that you're making is yours. Wouldn't that imply that, so then if that's the case, then why do we see the unemployment rates among black men that we see today? If your grandfathers, and even depending how old some of you are, your great-grandfathers and onwards were removed from the home, and then the one income that they had was just for them to take care of themselves, how do we get to the unemployment rates and the rates, the kind of either the clustering of joblessness or the clustering of black men in so many low working poor lower class jobs? So then you take it further from there. When we have this discussion, this is constantly brought up, particularly by black men, there's never an accounting for the fact that by the 60s and 70s, as jobs first, we slowly start to hit jobs moving from the city centers to more of your college community exurbs. John McWhorter, in his book Winning the Race, uses Indianapolis as an example of a town where, because that's the other part of the argument. So black women, feminism, single moms, and then the jobs left. And that's another funny way of phrasing things. Like, I don't know how a job, which is not an object, it's not a person, it's not a physical thing that can just animate itself and get up and walk away, or get in a car or on a train or an aeroplane and walk away. But we'll leave that for another subject. The jobs left. Well, first, they mostly just migrate away from the city centers, where a majority of black people, particularly in the north, as they come from the south, or where the black people had already just been kind of populated, tend to gather in most cities. The jobs first just really only move out about, anywhere from like 5 to 10 to 20 miles. So you couldn't just follow the work and go there. A lot of white men find themselves leaving the blue collar factory employment lines too, as those jobs move out. A lot of them moved with them. They commuted out to them. It's funny, they always talk about how, and this is like a black trope that we love to bring up, oh, remember the Birmingham or whatever bus boycott, so we all carpooled together and avoided taking the bus. So it's funny how that was some possible feat in the 50s and 60s when those, like, that type of organization was happening. But just within a 10-year period from that, black men, black people can't organize and carpool themselves out of like your Clevelands or Detroits or Milwaukee's or Chicago's out to like a neighboring suburban community to go to work, where a good chunk of those jobs relocated to. And because again, we're talking about before the jobs just start going over to Asia and other parts of the world and are completely removed, and way before we even just started to have the conversation about automation, where the job can be here or it can be in China or wherever else, but now there's a robot that can do the entire process or do a majority of the process, and that lessening of the reliance on human labor. So again, that's something else that never comes up in the discussion. And so as those things become a little bit more obvious, especially you look at the unions, breaking up, being kind of in a lot of the power plays that were happening in the 60s and 70s as the nature of work, changes. Where was the foresight of the most black male leadership, whether, as an active, racial, group or amongst themselves, or just individual black men who are, maybe community organizers, mayors, types of prominent leadership positions amongst their race in a certain city or certain neighborhood. Where was the foresight to see that, a lot of these are the jobs that we're up here to do. We're sitting here, trying to get integrated into white schools. We're actually really trying to get integrated somewhere else. But I'll probably just riff on that separately. Where was the foresight to think that part of the breakdown of the family? So besides the drugs and the violence everyone's talking about, we don't even just talk about the core economic changes and employment changes that were happening at that time. Because it would have probably behooved black men particularly to, besides, avoid, a robot or a white man from removing them from the home, to remain gainfully employed. There's a whole host of things that are on the list of what happened to the black race. Now, I'm just focusing on the very brief American experience. I'm not even going back to the continent, not even going back to Africa, not going back to the whole host of things that lead us here. But just in that unique sense, that needs to be a question that's put out there. Why weren't you making sure that, I thought about this, think about Jose and them. Yeah, we make a joke, the Mexicans, landscapers, Mexicans, line cooks, or in the back of the house in most restaurants in this country. But they managed to hold on to something for themselves, and to, while, agitating against white supremacy or whiteness, as they did, and in the various incarnations up through, your Rosas and what have you, but they still managed to be gainfully employed and to have places that they represent and that they're represented as employed people. Think about even in fact or fiction, Sopranos, the Italians, and Garbage Collection, and that kind of, or in The Mob, for wherever that's worth. The Irish and the firefighters. There's no profession that you can think of since maybe if you go back to in a very limited sense, the Pullman porters, of black men commanding a certain position, working a certain level of jobs, and being employed and being known for that. That's a question that, instead of all these fallacies about the black woman and the black mother, that they can be focusing on, because a big part of that is, then they can actually be focused on fixing themselves. Because more of them admitted in these circles that, they can't stand black women, they hate the black mother, hate the black woman feminism, blah, 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 blah. So a lot of these things that I want to maybe just throw out here are something they can unpack for themselves and deal with on their own. It's not about getting you to come back and lead the black race and come back to the community, because that's just not going to, A, it's not going to happen, and B, it's not necessary anymore, and just C, it's not ever going to happen. And then through the rest of the alphabet all the way to Z, it's not going to happen. It's not necessary. The damage is done. Now we can just all try to manage this fallout the best that we can, but I highly doubt that's even possible too. So that's one of the questions that black men could be asking themselves and figure out how to repair this. So actually, at least another thing, just what, instead of all these same kind of just rote, basic bitch, illogical, ill-contextualized videos that we see black men making here online. One thing that hit me too that I'd like to share that I think would be helpful to them. If you don't want to, Kendall St. Charles did that great, the Cleanup Woman series, one of her bigger series before she left YouTube, about the idea of the Cleanup Woman, how a lot of these black men say the black race is fucked up, feminism, drugs, gangs, blah, 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 just like Awareness of Chris's whole ... Cliff Notes of history. Okay. That's all there. But what can black men be doing to maybe help or fix other black men and boys? And I haven't been everywhere in the country, but I've been to a fair amount of most of our major American cities. And one thing that you notice now you have a plenty of white, Vietnam, alcoholics, drug addicts who make up the homeless population in their own fair amounts around the country. But you see a lot of homeless black men, and for various reasons, drugs, alcohol, they could be war vets, a whole host of reasons. And so I love all the energy that was, or at least now it's a little bit more muted, but there's still a little bit out there how they were all going to go to Brazil and they were going to get them an Aryan queen or whatever they were going to do. And it always kind of struck me as odd, like, shouldn't you be working on your options as black men a little bit more instead of engaging in all these like fantasies about, going to poach some other patriarch's, prize? And one key aspect of that would be getting the black man homeless dude off of the street. Like, when you think of like the pickpocket, or the average beggar guy, the aggressive panhandling homeless, you typically think of like, and also I'll be fair, you see a fair amount of black women in some pockets. Not as much. You usually don't see that many women in general as the kind of constant homeless. But anyway, you see some older, not always older, but a fairly, older black man, pretty, disheveled, not very clean, looking very, beat down and put upon. And that's in so many cities. Like, you think some of these good black men could maybe go out there, and then that way you don't have to worry about, well, I don't want to just fix something or help with something. These single black mom, BC 1000s, they nappy-headed hoes did it. You're helping other black men, and you're containing your empathy and your resource to just helping and focusing on other black men and boys. I think at this point too, with all this, the damage and all the things that have been said now by black men, particularly in this past decade, but pretty much forever, damn near. Now that black women like myself and a good portion of us are starting to actually listen and go, okay, that's how you really feel. All right, okay, cool. So the divestment that they claim to be doing just seems to be more like complaining. But if they want to go a little step further, do not help black women and girls. You can completely step away because of all the, the feminism and the single motherhoodedness and all the other ish-nish that you accuse us of doing. That is perfectly well and good. But why don't you get out there and maybe help some other black men? It's twofold. You're actually just devoting your resources to supporting black men and boys, and you don't have to worry about maybe accidentally giving, one of us, BT 1000 single baby moms a cup of milk or a loaf of bread accidentally. You can divert your resources and help that way, because then the second half of that is it gives you a better look out here. You can brag and run your mouth about all this degeneracy, but then then have a couple of movies or a TV show where one of you is looking real smooth and you're hanging out with Brad and eating Doritos or drinking a Budweiser, but then the next thing that white or non-black person sees, if they're in some major area, is somebody who looks like your image out there sitting on the street corner with a sign begging for money, sometimes being aggressive, smelling like piss, wandering around some city, causing trouble, just being a general eyesore and a nuisance. So that's a twofold maybe point that, I'm happy to leave with some black male that happens to maybe listen to this. Might be something for you to consider doing. So I'm hitting the 20-minute mark. I think I'm just going to close it here, let this one fly, and then I'll maybe come back with another one. I'm getting close to where I need to be. So yeah, maybe I'll come back for another. Maybe when I get to my destination, maybe this will be an afternoon of just uploading and just having some freewheeling talks here. So, anywho, I'll leave it right here for now, and I'll catch you guys later.